In kouchigari, you pull your opponent's foot forward, then you clip just as his foot comes down on the mat. In this instance, you cut down on the retreating foot of your opponent. Here, kouchigari is performed by pulling the opponent off sideways, and here you cause your opponent to open his feet wide and clip after subduing his defense. Another method is to clip holding one of your opponent's feet. You may sometimes turn around once as you take hold of your opponent's foot and make him fall.
Kouchigari. 足を鎌形にしてくるぶしの上を内側から刈ります。
Kosotogake is a technique of throwing your opponent in a kind of pulling up motion. Sometimes the sole of the foot, at other times the leg is used for clipping. As the opponent withdraws his left foot, shifting his weight onto his other foot, you make him fall, hooking with your leg. You first try an uchimata, then the moment your opponent tries to defend himself, leaning backward, you turn it into kosotogake. Here you take hold of the rear collar to bring your opponent in close, push him back to go off balance, then hook and make him fall.
小外掛け。右前隅に崩し、引きつけながら相手のくるぶしに足裏を当てて抜き倒します。
Taiotoshi into kosotogari. Dodging your opponent's taiotoshi, make him off balance, standing on both his heels, then cut him down in the direction of his toes using the back of your feet. Your foot will be placed on roughly the same line as your opponent's. When you're clipping, you should do so from your opponent's heels, in the direction of his toes, as if rubbing the surface of the mat. Your opponent should fall suddenly on the spot.
小外刈り。後ろ隅に崩し、足裏を相手のくるぶしに当て刈り倒します。
In Ashiguruma, you place your foot on your opponent's knee and throw with that as an axis. It's the same principle as Hizaguruma. Here an Osotogari is followed by Ashiguruma. First you execute Osotogari. When your opponent responds by withdrawing his left foot, you follow with Ashiguruma.
足車その1。右に開きながら足を相手の膝に押し当て引き落とします。足車その2。左前隅に崩し、その左膝を封じます。
In Koshiguruma, you grasp your opponent by the neck and throw in a twisting motion with him on your hips. Control your opponent by holding his neck. Place your waist deep under him and push to the side. Koshiguruma must be executed by holding your opponent's neck.
腰車。相手の首を右手で後ろから巻き、深く入れた腰を軸にして水車を回すように倒します。
Hanegoshi is a technique of throwing your opponent by bouncing him up using the movement of your hip and foot. Hanegoshi executed in pursuit. It's made the moment your opponent retreats and brings his left foot down. The leg to be used in bouncing your opponent up should be bent a little. You bounce him up around the lower part of his knee. The technique may be used after guiding your opponent sideways. This is Hanegoshi, where you jump in to execute the technique. Pull your opponent downwards, and when he straightens himself up in reaction, jump in to execute this technique.
跳ね腰。左足を踏み込ませながら相手を腰に引きつけ、右足で跳ね上げます。
つり腰。In tsurigoshi, you grasp your opponent's belt from behind, then bringing him in close, lift and throw on your hip. You must defend against your opponent's tsurikomigoshi while you grasp his belt from under his arm as you throw. In this form of tsurigoshi, you grasp your opponent's belt over his shoulder. Pulling your opponent forward, you grasp his belt over his shoulder and throw using tsurigoshi. Throwing as you grasp the front part of your opponent's belt is also an application of the tsurigoshi technique. It's called a tsurigoshi only when the belt is grasped in making the throw. There is an application of tsurikomigoshi which is generally called sode tsurikomigoshi. By pulling up your opponent's arm, you destroy his balance. You then have a choice of either taking hold of his sleeve opening like this, or taking hold of the elbow section of his sleeve. When grasping the sleeve opening, you sometimes do so by pushing your opponent's hand away. The throw is made when he comes back with the same hand to grasp your jacket. In tomoe nage, you drop backwards while putting a foot on your opponent's lower abdomen and throw him back over your head. Here the technique is applied just as soon as your opponent steps forward and tries to put his weight on his foot. Here the opponent is pulled out forward at a slight angle as the technique is applied. This is the way you apply the technique when your opponent is in a right-handed position, making him go off balance on his toes and making him fall to his right as you throw. Here the throw is made over your head when your opponent is in the right-handed position. Here the opponent is thrown by pushing him up using both feet.
巴投げ。真ん前に崩し、身を捨てながら足裏で相手を押し上げ、両手を引きつけます。
You start with both sides grappling in a defensive position. The technique was already in existence in Koryu, one of the older schools of jiu-jitsu, and the exact same form has been handed down. In the present-day randori, we do not start directly from such a position. In sumigaeshi, you fall backwards in a self-sacrificing movement. Place the instep of your right foot in the crook of his left knee and lift him up over your head. You pull your opponent forward, grasping his rear collar to execute sumigaeshi. Here it's done by grasping your opponent's rear collar or his back and starts with uchimata. Here it's a quick turn around from the uchimata position, followed on with sumigaeshi.
隅返し。真ん前に崩し身を捨て、足の甲を相手の後ろ股に当てて跳ね上げます。
Behind this form is to use the force of your opponent as you dodge his striking motion and to throw him, lifting him up on your hip as you sacrifice yourself by falling backward. Here the opponent's hanegoshi is transformed into an uranage. As the opponent attacks with a hanegoshi, hold his hips and bring him close and throw him directly behind over your shoulder. Another way is to hold and raise your opponent up from the front, then leaning back, throw by sacrificing yourself.
裏投げその1。相手の腰技をしかと左手で抱いてこらえ、右手を添えて抜き上げ、後ろに反り身になって捨てます。裏投げその2。下腹にぐっと力を入れて相手の腰を抱き上げ、左足元に引き落とします。
Kata. Destroy your opponent's balance in about 2.5 steps, then throw, sacrificing yourself. In this technique, it's important to make your opponent go off balance till he's supported only by his toes. You sweep, thrusting powerfully with your sole just underneath your opponent's ankle from the front, then sacrificing yourself, throw him parallel to your body. Because yokogake is extremely difficult to set up, it's hardly ever used in randori. You sometimes see it used in conjunction with sasae tsurikomiashi in practice. The opponent falls after being thrown in a large whirl. This too is an application of yokogake.
横掛けその1、右前隅に崩して身を捨てながら足裏で右足を払います。横掛けその2、右に開きながら身を捨て相手の足首を
In ukiwaza, you step sideways on one foot, sacrificing your balance, and throw your opponent in the direction of your foot. Around 1883, when the nage no kata form of the throw was established, the technique was performed starting with grappling in the self-defense posture. This is ukiwaza, performed by pulling the opponent forward. This ukiwaza is performed by stepping in with your right foot when your opponent withdraws his left foot. At times, you might assume an oblique defensive posture after pulling your opponent forward by grasping his rear collar and a sleeve and throw from a self-sacrificing posture. This is a technique of following on from kataguruma to ukiwaza. In this technique, as you're sacrificing yourself in making the throw, it is not kataguruma. The opponent is pulled by rolling up his right arm under your left arm, then thrown, twisting your body to the left.
浮き技その1。右前に引き落としながらその真下に身を捨て肩越しに投げます。浮き技その2。身を捨てざま肩越しに倒します。
If you try throwing your opponent with an uranage as he comes at you, he defends himself by twisting. Put your right foot between both his feet at that moment and throw, sacrificing yourself. Here the opponent's hanegoshi is turned into this technique. Here's the way to apply it, following on from Taniotoshi. The moment your opponent bends forward to defend himself against Taniotoshi, then you follow with this.
横車。相手の腰技に一瞬先んじて身を捨て、左足で相手の出を阻み、両手はハンドルを切るように肩越しに投げます。
Let's start by looking at the Kuzure Kesagatame is a modification of Hon Kesagatame. Slip your right arm under your opponent's left armpit and grip his collar. Let's take another look at this. When gripping your opponent's left lapel with your right arm, it's important to keep his body firmly pressed against yours. This is a variation in which you grasp your opponent's lapel near the back of his neck and hold him down, balancing yourself with your right hand and legs. Slip your left arm right under his neck so that you can firmly grasp and pull at his lapel. Place your right hand on the tatami to maintain balance. This variation involves trapping your opponent's right arm between your legs. Reach around his right elbow and apply a scissor hold with your legs. Tuck your right leg firmly under your opponent's head as if it were a pillow or makura, and secure your hold by gripping your right knee with your right hand. And here's what used to be called ushiro kesagatame. You can also slip your right hand underneath his right shoulder to apply an arm lock. This technique is often used to lead into kuzure kesagatame. The important thing is to trap his arm firmly in your armpit. In this variation, you use both hands to trap your opponent's arm. This is also a kuzure kesagatame. Bear down on his arm and upper body. The kata-gatame is a hold executed by pressing your right knee firmly against your opponent's right hip, bearing down with your head and neck to clasp both hands around his neck and arm. Clasp your hands, palms crossed, and draw your elbows to your side to tighten your hold. Make sure to keep the balls of your feet on the mat. It's important to maintain your balance while controlling your opponent. You can either bring your knees up or spread your legs out wide in response to your opponent's movements. If necessary, you can also place your hands on the mat to maintain your balance. The important thing is to keep your opponent under control. From a position diagonally to the right of your opponent's head, pass your right hand over his right shoulder and around his arm and trap his arm in your armpit while your left hand grabs the side of his belt. Apply pressure with the area of your chest to hold him down. Here's how you grab the back of your opponent's collar. Lower your hips and bear down, making sure that he can't free his right arm. Here's how you grab your opponent's belt with your hands crossed. Crossing your hands enables you to strengthen your hold, making it difficult for your opponent to free himself. You can also restrain his arm by half wrapping the bottom of his jacket over his wrist. Firmly secure his arm with the bottom of his jacket. Here, your opponent is on all fours. Approach him from the front and roll him over to apply a kata hajime and hold him down. The important thing is to roll over and go into the hold from a kata hajime. Your opponent is on all fours. Get behind him and roll him over to hold him down. Notice the use of both hands. Grip your opponent's collar with one hand and slip the other hand over his shoulder and under his arm to trap the arm and hold him down. If your opponent manages to seize your legs with his legs, the hold becomes nullified or broken. To prevent this from happening, it's important to make the most of your hands, extending your arms to block his legs. Your opponent is on all fours. Break his balance and apply a yoko sankaku jime. Maintaining this lock, shift your body to face him and hold him down. Pay special attention to the use of your left hand after coming face to face with your opponent. You lock your opponent's neck and arm by forming a triangle with your legs. This is one way to restrain your opponent's arm. Here's the model form or kata of okuri erijime. Reach under your opponent's left armpit with your left hand and pull his left lapel down. Reach around his neck with your right hand and grab high up on his left lapel while your left hand grabs the opposite lapel. Apply the choke by drawing your right arm around his neck while pulling down with your left. Here's how to apply the choke from behind an opponent who's on all fours. And this is a demonstration of how to approach from the side when your opponent is on all fours. By bringing your legs around, you can bear down with your upper body to restrain his movements. Use your right arm to prevent him from moving forward and apply the choke. This is a very effective technique since you're holding him in place with your right elbow while applying the choke. Approach your opponent who's on all fours from the front, roll over and apply the stranglehold. Be sure to grab his collar so that your hold around his neck tightens as you roll over. When facing your opponent, put your left arm around his neck to restrain him and apply the stranglehold. Take note of the left hand and the use of the right leg in turning the opponent over. Instead of rolling over sideways, you can also roll backwards. When rolling backwards, make full use of your legs and be sure to maintain contact with your opponent's body. This is a stranglehold which used to be called jigoku jime. Lock your legs around one of your opponent's arms and pull him down on his back to restrain him and draw your left arm around his neck. Lock his arm between your legs and roll forward to apply the stranglehold. Roll forward on your own accord as soon as you lock your legs around his arm. Besides applying pressure with both hands, you can also use your leg to make the stranglehold more effective. Drawing your leg across his face is against the rules. Let's take another look at the action. This is a variation in which you lock your legs around your opponent's arm and roll forward to go into the stranglehold, placing grip your opponent's left lapel with your right hand, as in okuri erijime. Slide your left hand under his left armpit and control his left arm by pushing it up. Then apply your left arm at the nape of his neck to execute the stranglehold. Pushing his left arm up from below the elbow makes it difficult for him to resist and makes it easier for you to apply the hold. When your opponent is on all fours, approach him from behind and roll over to execute the hold. Let's take a look at this in slow motion. And here's how to approach your opponent from the front to apply kata hajime. For kata tejime, hold your opponent down on his back, grasp his collar from the side with one hand using a grip with the thumb inside and apply pressure to his throat. While grasping his collar with one hand, grip the side of his belt with the other and lean forward to tighten the hold. This is an example of using kata tejime when your opponent is on all fours. Approach from the front and use your right hand. Or you may choose to use your left hand. Pull him close towards you and apply pressure to his throat. The important thing is to restrain his upper body with the inside of your right knee to stop him from rolling over and escaping. To perform ude hishigi wakigatame, use both hands to get a grip on one of your opponent's wrists from the side and trap his arm in your armpit. Stretch the arm out while twisting it backwards at the elbow. This is how to apply the technique from a standing position. Speed is important. Apply the lock as soon as you get a hold on his wrist. It is a penalty to throw yourself on the mat. Here's how to apply the lock from a kuzure kami shihogatame. Grab your opponent's arm, taking advantage of his attempt to escape, and apply pressure with your entire weight. This is how to execute the lock from a kuzure kami shihogatame, combining the arm lock with a stranglehold. After trapping his arm in your armpit, wrap your leg around his waist to restrain him.
Taigatame ude kujiki, sono 1. Taigatame ude kujiki, sono 2.
In ude hishigi ude gatame, you pull your opponent's wrist and lodge it between your neck and shoulder so that the arm is stretched and twisted, and then press down with both hands on the elbow. This is how to apply the technique when your opponent attacks from the feet. Use your legs to defend yourself and apply pressure on his elbow. You can also assume a more aggressive approach, using your elbows to restrain his arm. Let's take a closer look. Wrap your arms around your opponent's arm and trap it between your neck and shoulder. You can also apply the lock by twisting his elbow and pressing it against your chest. This shows how to restrain your opponent's surite, or lifting arm, just before grappling. When your opponent attempts to grab the back of your collar, seize the moment to trap his arm between your neck and shoulder. In order to restrain your opponent's hikite, or pulling arm, wrap your arms around his upper arm and press down. Let's take a closer look at that action. Here's how to apply the lock from a yoko shiho gatame. The point is to place your entire weight on your opponent's arm.
Ude gatame ude kujiki, sono 1. Ude gatame ude kujiki, sono 2. Ude gatame ude kujiki, sono 3. Ude gatame ude kujiki, sono 4.